Welcome to the Kauffman FastTrac author series. I'm Jordan Marcello, and today we're speaking with Dorie Clark on how to find your breakthrough idea. Welcome, Dorie.
Hi, thanks, Jordan.
Thank you for being with us and in our new format. We're really excited to speak with you today. In your new book, Stand Out, you talk about the idea of finding your breakthrough idea. Can you explain a little bit what exactly is a breakthrough idea and how does one go about finding it?
So, a breakthrough idea I define as an idea that somehow moves your field forward, somehow makes a contribution to your company, to your industry, what you're doing. It is the idea that you become known for. And I think sometimes people might get intimidated by the idea of a breakthrough idea because they say, oh, well, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an Einstein, I can't come up with a breakthrough, some patentable thing. But really, that's not what we're talking about. My favorite example of this actually is Howard Schultz, who is, the leader of Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy. He didn't invent coffee. That had been around for millennia. He certainly didn't invent coffee shops, which had been around for years. What he did was just make slight variations on the theme that nonetheless moved the ball forward and created something new and distinct, and as a result was able to create a huge entrepreneurial leap forward, a multi-billion-dollar empire, because he just did coffee shops a little bit differently. And I think for most of us, if we can begin to frame it out, how do we look at the issue differently? How do we create something that's just different enough that people take notice and say, actually, that's what I've been needing? That is a breakthrough idea.
So how do you know when you found one? You mentioned that people probably put a lot of pressure on themselves, right? They think that this breakout idea has to be the next Facebook. Maybe that's a breakthrough idea. But it could be, just as you said, something as simple as someone looking at coffee and coffee shops in just a different manner. Do you have any tools or techniques that an entrepreneur can use to maybe figure out their breakthrough idea or really affirm that they have a breakthrough idea?
Well, I think that one of the key things is that sometimes people from the beginning think that a breakthrough idea has to emerge fully formed in their brain. That they wake up and they have this amazing insight, this bolt of lightning, and that's their breakthrough idea, and they're going to know it because they feel the shiver of revelation traveling down their spine. And I think that also is a distancing mechanism that makes a lot of people feel like, well, that's not me, that hasn't happened to me, or that could never happen to me. What I discovered in the course of writing my book Stand Out, where I interviewed over 50 top thought leaders in a variety of different fields, is that for most of them, they came up with their ideas literally through engaging with their field, through rolling up their sleeves and experimenting and trying things out. This was not a fully formed idea. It was an idea that they came to by doing. Then it's through spending that time that you begin to say, oh, actually, there's really something here. And I think that for a lot of ideas, that's the case. It's through engaging. It's through doing work in the field. And I think that's the question that entrepreneurs need to ask themselves. What seems like it's impossible, but actually is just difficult? And how do we get around that?
That's great. So I have a question about your breakout idea or breakthrough idea. When did you have yours?
Well, for me, and I think with a lot of entrepreneurs, this is really the case. It started by my trying to solve my own problem. I was a solopreneur. I run a consulting business doing marketing strategy, and I teach and do speaking as well. And I really wanted to come to understand of the people in my field and in other fields who had become enormously successful, the real thought leaders, the people that everyone looks up to in the field. How did they get where they are? What did that look like? What was that process like? And were there things, commonalities that I could discern so that regular professionals could follow in those footsteps and also get their best ideas known and recognized? I've discovered that when it comes to developing breakthrough ideas, there are really 5 key strategies that thought leaders and aspiring thought leaders can use. And one of them is what I call codifying a system. And basically what that means is that if you can create an explanatory device to help people better understand your field or an issue in your field, then that becomes really powerful, because anytime that issue is mentioned, people are going to reference your framework, because it's just so helpful to enable people to wrap their heads around it. So Robert Cialdini, for instance, he has developed a system where there's 6 principles of influence and persuasion. And that's become classic. Clearly, influence and persuasion is something that's existed forever. It's been talked about forever. But it wasn't until Cialdini that people actually, he said, okay, there's these 6 ways you can persuade people. That's really it. And everyone says, oh, you're right. And so consequently, enormously impactful. Similar for David Allen and the Getting Things Done methodology. So what I've tried to do in writing Stand Out is essentially to create a methodology to understand thought leadership and lay out the different strategies that people can use. And I hope that it can be beneficial to people who have great ideas that they want to get out there, so that they can look at this, find themselves in it, and say, oh, here's the strategies I could choose from and use. Let me do that, because I would like to live in a world where it is easier for people with great ideas to get those ideas heard.
What are your top 3 or 5 kind of tools of the trade or tips to help entrepreneurs or anyone really find their breakthrough idea?
Yeah, so I'll just go through very briefly the points that I cover in Stand Out. So one of them that I already mentioned is creating a framework. And again, this is sort of a smorgasbord, right? You don't need to do literally all of these things. You can pick the one or maybe the 2 that seem most applicable to your circumstances and go nuts on them. So creating a framework is one. Another is a niche strategy, in which you become a real recognized expert in a narrow swath in your profession. And then later you can expand out incrementally from there. But there's less competition, frankly. It's easier to make a mark if you're going deep on something in particular, and then move from there. So if we take technology, it's a lot easier to become an expert in streaming video than it is an expert in technology writ large. So that would be one example of that. Another strategy is what I call mixing disciplines. This is a cornerstone of a lot of innovations these days. Is basically taking disparate fields and blending them together in new and interesting ways. So many folks who are watching this may be familiar with Eric Ries and his work on the lean startup. This is a pretty cool mashup, actually, because it takes technology and entrepreneurship and it blends it with the lean methodology, which is, frankly, an unlikely suspect. It is very old school. Lean methodology was created to help auto manufacturing. It is an assembly line technology. And yet Eric Ries was able to see important things in it. And if you blend it with startups, you can create something new and cool. The fourth possibility that people can use is creating original research. And what I mean by this, this doesn't have to be scientific research. It can be all kinds of different things. But the basic idea is that everybody has an opinion these days, but very few people have new facts. They have, in-depth, interesting, original research of some sort. And so whether it's writing reviews that are actually smart and thoughtful and thorough, it could be case studies, it could be white papers, it could be doing interviews like a journalist, it could be doing a survey, a quantitative analysis if that's your deal. But any of those things is really helpful, because when you have new, deep information rather than just, well, I think this, then it moves the ball forward, it moves the field forward, and people are going to cite you because that's really valuable. And then fifth and finally is what I will call choosing a worthy idea, choosing a big idea to pursue. It is a lot easier to become recognized as a thought leader if you are pursuing a goal or a topic that is already on people's minds and it's already something that people care about. If you are doing something, if oh yeah, it's the Uber of window washing. That's nice, but it's not necessarily something that people are staying up, crying about, right? But if you can pick a topic to focus on that people really care about, have a passionate interest in, even if you don't solve it 100%, if you're able to make advances, people are going to be watching what you're doing. They're going to be excited. They're going to be passionate. It's going to be easy for you to attract talent. This is something, when you hear these days panegyrics to entrepreneurship, now that Steve Jobs is gone, the person that people are most likely to mention is Elon Musk. Well, why is that? Well, part of it is that his work stirs the imagination because he has picked really interesting topics. You know, he wants to explore space. He wants to create electric cars. Those are very sexy things, and it's very motivating for people to get behind that dream. So those are 5 strategies that I suggest in Stand Out.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dorie. I think we're going to wrap up our segment on finding your breakthrough idea. You've shared wonderful tips and techniques behind finding your idea. Hopefully, entrepreneurs can take these techniques and start really formulating their breakthrough idea, understanding that they have one, and get ready to roll with it. Thank you, Dorie.
Thank you, Jordan. I'll also just mention briefly for folks who are participating that if you're interested in developing your own breakthrough ideas, on my website, dorieclark.com, which is DORIECLARK.com, I actually have a free 42-page workbook that I created based on Standout that walks you through the process of developing your own ideas and building a following around them. So if folks would like to download that for free, they can do so at dorieclark.com.
That's absolutely wonderful, Dorie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.